Well, this month, yes, we've gone back up from the just over 4.5, or about 4.5 billion last month to this month is 6.3 billion pounds, which is very similar to the start of 2021 as well. So it's back up again. And what I would say is I think the inflation rates came out this month as well, and showing there's been quite a lot of inflation, and there still is a lot of inflation. So our benchmark of £4 billion a month might have to be revised now to put another 10% on top of that to, so we say 4.5 billion if we hit that target. So let's hope so, and let's hope those prices or those increases are reflected and clients understand that that's the way forward.
Absolutely. So with that being said, who came out on top? Was it one massive project that put somebody on the top, or is it a culmination?
It's actually a partnership, and it's a deal between Level Partnerships, which is part of the Morgan Sindall Group, and Suffolk Council. Now, it's the Suffolk Council have chosen Level Partnerships is to form a property development alliance to build over 3,000 homes over a 15-year agreement. Now, it will also include Suffolk County Council providing some work as well, or labour as well, to the sites as well. So it's a real partnership, and now we've decided to not put it under the Morgan Sindall banner because Suffolk are there and going to be an active partner in this alliance. Then they've come out, and it's 700 million we've put it at the present moment in time. It's 5 initial locations which have been identified in Suffolk: Lowestoft, Middenhall, Bramford, West Row, and Newmarket. And the joint venture will deliver new housing-led developments to be built on council land. So it's much needed, probably housing for social rent and that market as well. But obviously, Level Partnerships will also be providing or building for their own spec side of things as well.
What is the value of that one, Neil?
It's 700 million pounds. So it is a marquee project, but it is over 15 years. So they'll identify the sites and then they'll carry forward. But it secures a workload and a work effort in the Suffolk area, as I say, for 15 years. So universities, colleges, places for apprenticeships should start to be gearing up now, ready for this to really start to be going forward from today.
A constant topic of conversation. Now, we are going to get on to our top 5, but I know we've got some people here that have very specific regional interests. So I'm going to throw up Wales and Scotland. And I'm fairly sure the two of them only asked to score points against each other, to be perfectly honest. But how are we doing regionally?
Well, regionally, Scotland has had a good month this month, and it's over 350 million pounds worth of work. So they've had a terrific month this month. Whereas I'd say Wales, I think you'd have it on your school report. Must try harder. It's got about 80 million pounds worth of work. So yes, it's falling behind the times a little bit there in Wales. But Scotland has had a good month, a very good month. But
okay, we'll come back.
Yeah,
we'll come back to the regions, obviously, because we've obviously touched on the fact that Suffolk has had a very good month indeed. But
absolutely.
let's have a look at the top 5. We know who number 1 is. So who's number 2 on the list this month?
Number 2 is a company called Downing Construction and Downing Developments. Now they are a property developer which build their own, and they're starting a 400 million pound project in Manchester, and it's a mixed-use development. It's First Street South development of 4 buildings, varying in height from 10 stories to 45 stories. And it's going to have commercial units, restaurants, private amenity space, public realm, and plus obviously living areas as well. So yeah, that's it. I think it's on plot 11 at the First Street, Manchester, which is a big development region up there in Lancashire. So yeah, they're number 2 on the list. Number 3 is an energy from waste plant, which is to be built in Chester, and that's by a company which is called Metka Engineering. They're based in the city in London, but their project's going to be £350 million, and the energy from waste plant is intended to divert up to 400,000 tonnes of non-recyclable waste from landfill or export each year and generate up to 49 megawatts of low carbon electricity. So it's a power and energy waste plant up there in Chester. Number 4 on the list is Mace, and they've secured a mixed-use development. Sorry, it's not a mixed-use development. It may be. It's a new court and police complex on Fleet Street. It's the Salisbury Square development, and it will house legal facility for Her Majesty's courts and tribunals, and new headquarters for the City of London Police with 18 courtrooms. And the City of London law courts will combine all the square miles existing courts, except for the Old Bailey, into this one area. And that's a £300 million project picked up by Mace in Fleet Street. And to finish the top 5 is Kia. They've picked up their largest project that they've picked up is a £70 million project at the old former BBC television centre, and this at Wood Lane. And this is Plot H. Plot H, Phase 2, erection of 4 to 6 to 8-storey buildings to provide 142 residential units and some flexible commercial workspace. And so that's a £70 million project. And Kia's pick up or take the award for most number of projects, single projects, and that's 13 this month. However, Morgan Sindall have got 12, and it excludes obviously the level partnership. So they might be 13, they might have drawn level, but we've kept that, as I say, as a separate project. So it's Kia and they picked up £222 million overall of work.
How many are we over 100 million this month?
Looking down the list, 14.
That's not bad.
It's an average month. It's a good month. And what we've got this month is 423 new projects that we found and validated, and there's 275 companies that have picked up that work. So roughly, the order book is 40% greater than last month, and it's something like 30% more projects as well than last month. But if you look at January 2021, they're very, very similar rates between the two of them.
One of the things that struck me about the your top 5 rundown there was it wasn't all London and the South. There was a fair spread there.
Yes, yeah, and yes. So if you look regionally this month, yes, London does pick up the top award for £1.3 billion worth of new work, but very close behind is the Northwest, which is obviously includes the Manchester project I was talking about, but that's £1.2 billion. So yeah, very, very close. And the East Anglia, well, obviously where all those Suffolk homes are, that they've got over 800 million. And the Midlands is 367 million. And then what I can say, gladfully, it will be Scotland at 352 million pounds. So yeah, they really shot up the list this month.
That will be a scant consolation to our friend Ken Hatcher, who has basically said Wales is doomed.
Well, there is still plenty of time. Let's be optimistic. Let's be half full rather than half empty.
Absolutely. So how are we looking on in terms of sectors? Obviously, we've mentioned some big housing projects there, but how are we looking sector-wise?
Yes, housing is once again out in front, £2.5 billion worth of work in that area. And miscellaneous, mixed use, because of the one in up in Lancashire, up in Manchester, because that's got some other parts to it, commercial element to it as well. That's £1.4 billion worth of work. And then power and energy, because we're talking about that waste to energy plant, that's 466 million. And then we've got education. So it's the usual suspects. Railways, not much this month in railways yet for the HS2 side of things. Warehouses, it's had a quietish month. and factories and warehouses, yeah, it's had a quietish month for what it's been doing like over the last few months as well.
It all sounds like very positive news in terms of the number of contracts, the number of people that are winning contracts, and everything else. And yet, it's not everything in the garden is rosy. Obviously, the news or the industry news at the moment is very much focused on the demise of Midas, and they are not alone. Is that a sign of inflationary pressure, or what do you think?
I think it's a culmination of everything, but I do think inflation has played a part in how companies are doing at the present moment in time. I spoke earlier part that they're talking at least 10%. I think that's quite conservative within the construction sector itself. As on a regular basis, you see the likes of brick manufacturers, cement manufacturers, steel manufacturers, all saying that they are putting up their prices this month, and they said that last month and the month before. So there is quite a lot of pressure. And when you're talking about this amount of work, supply and demand, and contracts that have been signed 18 months ago, during the pandemic, when people were unsure of the future, unsure of what was going to be happening, may have taken some risks that probably they would hope would be okay, but that they've obviously not happened. And yeah, Midas is a fantastic business. And it's a big shame that they've posted for administration, and that's the same with a company called PDR and they're based up in Hull, up in that neck of the woods. They've also gone into administration, so there's going to be a few bumps in the road over the next few months. And you talk quite regularly about the impact of the VAT on diesel, and that's going to have some effect going forward. And as I said, clients. It's not the responsibility of the contractor to bear, or the subcontractor or the staff to bear those extra costs. It must be that it's the clients, because otherwise you'll just see many businesses fall by the wayside.
I agree with you 100%, but I think where we're going to have the issue is the fact that we've got some projects that were let on a fixed price before the increase before the increase in the cost of red, or the switch from red to white diesel, but also you've already mentioned steel and brick and cement. I mean, we're talking double-digit price increases. If you're tied into a fixed price contract, that's going to sting one hell of a lot, isn't it?
It is, and if they're long term, if you've fixed into a contract for 2 or 3 years, then that really is going to hurt very, very hard. And our business is going to look now at projects that are going to be of a short in program time rather than and longer, because the risk profile of those will be less than obviously a 2-year project, 3-year project, unless it is looking at maybe putting some kind of extra clauses within those contracts to say, okay, we'll fix X, Y, and Z, but if for these prices in specific, where they are imported, go back to the imported side of things, then we cannot, because of economic and world changes, we cannot actually keep those prices firm.
It's an interesting point. You mentioned imports there. Our friend Gary Muirhead has said, do you think we'll see more cheap imports in building materials? I mean, I guess on the one hand, there is certainly the demand for those materials, but on the other side, you've got post-Brexit restrictions, which will probably make it fairly difficult to get some of those materials in, regardless of how cheap they are.
Exactly, and the move towards a greener way of life would also mean that putting materials coming from all the way from the other side of the world, whether it be China, wherever, on a large shipping container and bringing it over to the UK, that may not meet certain requirements. So you are going to be struggling. But yeah, there will be more imports going forward. But as you quite rightly said, the restrictions through the ports is also going to be a factor, and whether you're going to get those materials on time, or you're going to have to pay a premium for actually materials that are produced in the UK.
The other thing that was big news this past couple of days was this regeneration fund as part of the levelling up. I know Gary Muirhead is focused on that. We mentioned that on the show yesterday. Is that, I guess it's good news, but it's not actually new news, is it?
No, it's regurgitated news. Regurgitated news back from quite a long time ago, actually. The £1.5 billion for the levelling up is going to be great because it's not going to be focused anywhere near, shall we say, from Watford down. Let's as a generalisation, it is going to be above that. But yeah, it's going to be in those sort of areas. But it is not old news because it's not from way, but it is regurgitated news, and all it is probably a little bit of spin because I think the government might be off at a party at the moment, and so therefore they haven't quite seen they need to level up the UK.
Yeah, and I mentioned yesterday one of my concerns with these government-backed things is I'm never entirely sure that sort of 1.5 billion, which is not to be sneezed at, but I do have my concerns about its ability to percolate down to
yes,
the local companies. It's by the time everyone's taken their bite out of that specific cherry, there's not going to be a great deal filtering down to the little regional companies, is there?
No, and I think you pointed out over the last few days as well that maybe that money is coming from the changing of the tax or the VAT tax on red diesel to white diesel, where that money was actually at source at that point down there. But as you say, the £1.5 billion at the top, the time it gets to at source at the bottom, I don't know what that figure will be. And yeah, we've obviously got to provide strategies in certain areas because you just can't go and spend £1.5 billion willy-nilly across the UK. You have to have a defined strategy. But when you have defined strategies, you probably import consultants, and so that's going to take a level of money across off of the actual £1.5 billion. Then you're going to have people to implement the strategy, and then you're going to have there's going to be lots and lots and lots of different levels to this. So yes, by the time it actually gets down to grassroots or the source of things, how much is going to be left in that pot, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, our friend Mick Norton has mentioned that, and I've thrown this up a couple of times. I think the league table, obviously, London came out on top, but I do get that feeling, and I do wonder about some of that, particularly when we're talking about what's been going on in the Midlands, and more specifically this month, I think Manchester. Is that the after? Is that part of the HS2 wave? Do you think?
From a personal point of view, I do believe that, yes. The Midlands has obviously got the Commonwealth Games coming up as well this year, 2022. So that is going to be, I think it's 2020, yeah, I think it's this year. That's having an impact in that area where there's obviously a regeneration process going on there because many countries are coming to the UK and many athletes are going to be here based in the UK, and they're going to have accommodation, etc., etc. And then it's going to change into social housing or whatever after that. And so HS2 goes there, and then it obviously goes up to Manchester, that area as well. And I do think I think the government are missing a little bit of a trick by not doing the actual spin-off to Leeds as well, because it would be a fantastic opportunity to provide more work throughout the UK.
Now, I mentioned on our question of the day, which I can't actually find. I'm sure I posted it. Yeah, there we go. I asked our viewers, will 2022 be better than 2021? The general consensus is it's likely to be much the same. We're only a month in. I know you're only dealing facts, but what does the Neil Edwards gut tell you right now that 2022 has in store?
I think we're going to see a small increase, a little bit better than last year, because we're going to have the pandemic that's going to be gone. There's a lot of pent-up demand in certain aspects now. Hopefully, you'll see the entertainment sector start to go again, because we've all been stuck in our houses, whether you've done it or not, for a long time. I know we've been key workers as an industry, but for 20, 21 months now, we've all been sitting around and we want to get out, and we've already seen that the number of flights that have been booked in recent weeks has significantly increased. So I think we are going to see a little bit of growth this year. But if I was to put one caveat and all of that, I think inflation is going to be a key factor in all of this, and that could scupper any type of increase in workload.
Because we've touched on inflation in terms of material costs, but we haven't touched on wage costs. And I know you very rightly mentioned the fact that, you know, there's 15 years of work over in Suffolk. We should be looking at some vocational training for young people to come out of schools and colleges and universities. Here's 15 years potential work that you could be involved in. But labour costs are going to be an issue as well, aren't they?
Oh yes, and we've got the increase in national insurance coming up. We've got the gas and fuel price increases, and if you just go to the petrol pumps outside, you know, it's what is it, 148, 149 for diesel. All those have been increasing. I haven't seen anything that's been discounted in the recent months, so that's all putting pressure on labour costs, and then clients or employers have got to somehow manage that. So you're in a very difficult situation because we've got to live and everything else, but you've obviously got a fixed price tender if we're doing it on just on the construction basis, and you fixed your cost. So yes, it's going to be there's going to be a few bumps in the road, as I say, but I think the thing that may scupper any kind of growth will be inflation, and it won't. That will come from across the world it won't be just based in the UK. It will come across the world that the inflationary pressures.
I find it so strange that we've got £6.2 billion on the books. Great start to the new year, and yet when you've got things like inflation and hikes in fuel costs and stuff like that, it just kind of leaves you just a little bit deflated, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're great at it in the industry for talking ourselves down, but you and I have been when we first probably got mortgages ourselves. The interest rates were something like 15%, weren't they? They went up to those mad levels. Now that will definitely scupper any kind of increase in workload if we go anything near that. And we've had the first increases in interest rates for I don't know how long last month. So all of this, it just gives you that slight bit of uneasiness. We need a little bit longer period of time to understand what's going on. And I think we've got to focus, there's going to be other pressures across the world, out in Russia and Ukraine, that could put a significant pressure on fuel prices and gas prices. So yeah, it's now world economy, isn't it? The UK is not just a singular item, it's a world economy.